So much theft in the world that we even now have supermodels stealing from charities. Which one are we talking about? Naomi Campbell, barred from being charity trustee in England and Wales. A big AP news story that just crossed my desk. Here she is bawling her eyes out. How sad. The reason why is because being a supermodel has gotten really difficult because they have a lot of people coming after their job. We've got so many plus-size models entering the industry that we need to have a little more sympathy for the old school models like Naomi Campbell. And I guess she just needed a new way to make some money. What's the best way to do that than to raise money? And apparently deemed Thursday to have been poorly governed charity with inadequate financial management. This is the story you typically hear from professional athletes here in America, but I guess now we have supermodels getting in on the trend, taking money, spending it all. So there was a 3-year investigation into the financial activities of Fashion for Relief, one of my favorite names of a charity. Why not just come up with YouTubers for Relief? You know, this is so original, it's so good. But this charity commission, they were a watchdog. They got on to her and the charity. They regulate the charities and found that only 8.5% of the charity's overall expenditure went to charitable grants. I do have good news for you all, because this was not 100% a fraud. It was only 91.5% fraud. The Fashion for Relief charity was registered in 2015, and it was recently removed March 15th, 2024. What was the purpose of this charity? Was to save the world. We don't need to go through all the specifics. Like all charities, it was out to prevention of poverty, advancement of education, and just save the world. Now, how the supermodel would do it, I'm not exactly sure. Apparently, it is raising a bunch of money and then using it for personal expenses. This is from the Charity Commission official report. They opened a proactive compliance visit and inspection case into the charity in 2020, following a review of information submitted in the charity's annual return for the financial year ending 2018. They've been on this for a couple years. They finally released their report, which has shown us who was running this charity and where the money was actually going. Here we see Naomi Campbell was trustee A in their report. Now my favorite part, a chart. Income and expenses. Where did the money actually go? I don't know what that symbol is because I'm an ignorant American, but it's 4.8 million euros or pounds, somewhere around 4 or 5 million US dollars. Expenses were nearly 4.6 million and only 389,000 grants given. For some reason, this doesn't exactly add up. The best part about this, though, is that they asked the trustee, and a trustee B actually came back and reported that 18% in this time period from 15 to 2019, only 18% went to governance and operations. I have a feeling that number should be a little higher. 72% event charges, only 10% to grants awarded. My understanding is that Naomi Campbell, being a supermodel, she would hold these fashion shows where she would raise money. My understanding is that you would hope to have maybe 10, 20, 50, 100x the donations that it does the cost. Consider me ignorant here. I don't understand what costs go into a fashion show. You just need a big room, you need some chairs, and you just need people to walk out. I understand the clothing is expensive, but maybe you rent it. Whatever, I'm not in that business. But 72% margin, that'd be what, not even like 10 or 20% margins for these events? Something doesn't add up for me. But the trustee had to actually respond. It's like, hey, we're looking into this report. We think the funds were used, they were mismanaged, this charity was mismanaged, and they actually reported back that only 10%, I mean, think of the confidence you'd have that if someone was auditing you, that you only put 10% into the charity. Where do you think the money went? Well, we have one example of a flight on May 11th, 2018 from London to Nice, $14,000, $15,000, somewhere around there. We're talking private jet. How nice of a private jet? Because that is a lot more than a first class ticket would cost, so that's got to be a private jet, right? Here's what was so important about that jet, and the reason why they needed to fly private. The trustees confirmed that a then trustee and one major unnamed donor were boarded on the flight, which had been booked for the purposes of transferring art and jewelry in excess of $1.5 million to the charity's fundraising event in Cannes. This is a really important flight. We have to have some sympathy here. They needed to transport all of this jewelry and art. Was it money laundering? I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna speculate. Was this all a scam to fly private to the Cannes Film Festival, which is why I'm assuming why you'd be in Cannes? I don't know. I'm not going to speculate there. However, that money was not going to solving world problems. The inquiry questioned the costs of travel and accommodation incurred by the charity relating to its May 2018 fundraising event in Cannes, France. Oh, okay, so it was a fundraising event. It was not the film festival. There must be a lot of big money donors there and people that love artwork and jewelry. Now, did Naomi and the charity make money off this artwork and jewelry? I don't believe so. They stayed at a 5-star hotel, as recorded in invoices from a firm which the charity used. $9,400 being paid from the charity's funds for 3 nights accommodation for trustee A, that'd be Naomi Campbell, at the hotel in May 2018. I've stayed in some nice hotels. $9,400 has got to be a penthouse, right? But then again, we need to have some sympathy. We have a lot of plus-size models entering into her industry. It has changed so much. Maybe she is upset about where the industry is heading, and she needed to stay penthouse suite. She needed all the accommodations to hold these events because she wants to remind herself that she is still the star. When she goes on the catwalk, she's able to raise millions of dollars for this charity. But there is more. Payments to trustees. There's a clause that said the charity's constitution relates to benefits and payments to charity trustees and connected persons. However, I think there was some money going for consulting. Now, this consultant probably needs to be fired because how in the world can you consult for a charity that only gave 8.5% of the proceeds to actionable charitable grants? But this trustee B received $290,000 for roughly 2 years. Yeah, 2 years, July 2018 to July 2020. $290,000 consulting fees, excluding expenses. I'd love to consult for $290,000. Imagine if I did YouTube consulting for someone who lost money. How in the world would I charge for that? And there's even more trustee expenses. The inquiry identified expenses incurred by trustee A relating to an event held in the name of the charity in Cannes. So this is the infamous event. She's flying private, selling jewelry. In addition to the hotel stay, various additional charges incurred by trustee A totaling almost $8,000 that were paid for by the charity. These costs included spa treatments, room service, and the purchase of cigarettes and hotel products. She has got to smoke after activities in the bedroom. She needs her room service. Although, how much was she really eating? Because she maintains a very skinny figure. Can't imagine she need much. Spa treatments, though. This was an important event. She needed to sell that jewelry, needed to raise money that was going to end up back in her pocket to the extent of $8,000 for a single night. I found this interesting section on Naomi's Wikipedia. Maybe she has some scandals in her past. I did not know her relationship with these 2 people mentioned in this sentence that would probably get me banned on YouTube, so I'm not going to use their names, but you can read on the screen. But she also was introduced to her ex-boyfriend Flavio Briatore. Now, do you know that name? I did not. So let's do a little research into him. This fella, this nice-looking gentleman, 74 years old and Italian. Well, we need to scroll down to see a section for convictions and fugitive status. Briatore was convicted of multiple counts of fraud in the 1980s, receiving not 1, but 2 prison sentences. 1 wasn't enough. In 1984, a court in Bergamo found him guilty of various counts of fraud. He was fined and sentenced to 1 year and 6 months in prison. Now, how does that relate to Naomi? This was ex-boyfriend. We need to have some respect for fraudsters who actually get away with it because it is so difficult to commit fraud. I mean, this guy was probably really savvy and still got caught up twice. Apparently, he was a con man, sentenced to 3 years for fraud and conspiracy for his role in a team of confidence tricksters, set up rigged gambling games. I'm not saying this is what happened, but maybe on their date nights, Naomi was able to get some stuff out of him on how do you commit fraud? How do you steal and not get caught? It didn't work. She went to the wrong man because she eventually got caught. However, this man probably had an interesting impact on her life. I think even somewhere else she labeled him as a mentor. Now let's check out the website for Fashion for Relief to see what this is all about, to see what they've got going on. There's a really important image right here on the middle of the screen. This is all of these superstar models that are walking around and doing so much good for this event. And the best part about this is that they talk about the 1% having so much of the world's wealth, $140 trillion. If the richest 1% gave just 1% of their income to humanitarian charities, that would be $1.4 trillion. Can you imagine how many people they could help? How much relief would be in the world with $1.4 trillion? But it is not lost on me that you have Naomi Campbell running an event in Cannes, France, where she's flying private to bring jewelry and artwork to this event, and just trying to get the crowd to donate to her charity that would end up back in her pocket. So the irony of her trying to go after the 1% while she's in the 1% and raising enough money, I mean, what was it, 4.8 million, that would end up back in her pocket for personal expenses, for spa treatments, cigarettes, you know how expensive they've gotten recently, and for staying in penthouse suites. Think of how funny this image is that you have a 1% lady trying to raise money for the 1% all to just steal it. It is, oh, I love my profession. I get to look at stories like this all the time. I mean, how do you not enjoy these stories? They're hilarious. Lastly, I want to end on this. She's run into some legal issues in the past. Maybe she's not as clean as her image appears to be. I did not know about this, that she's gotten into fights. She's assaulted people. Her former housekeeper, she attended her community service wearing designer outfits. Yeah, a $300,000 Dolce & Gabbana gown for her sentence. That is an interesting way of saying that I'm sorry. Look at this. What's this? 4 different events. Now, the last one was 15 years ago, so maybe she's learned from her mistakes. However, with this recent little snafu into the charity, maybe she hasn't. It looks like she is no longer going to commit charity fraud, and that puts an end to this story. Thank you so much for watching.